Hey there YouTube, welcome back to the Allegheny Northern in N scale, and today we are going to do a product review of the locomotive you just saw go through its startup sequence. This is the Atlas. It is a gold series from their Masterline collection. It is the Dash 8 and it is in the Pepsi can paint scheme for Amtrak. And if you're sitting there thinking, I've seen this locomotive on your railroad before, you are correct. There is its sister unit right there, but these are two very different units. And that is, this one's probably going on, I want to say 10 or 15 years old. And this one is going on about 10 or 15 days old. So, new release from Atlas. And obviously sound equipped and top of their product line. So let's look at the model that the new model first, and then let's compare it to the older generation. So let's zoom in here. Molded on details on the pilot, with the exception, of the cables up above here. Nice see-through grill detail, all the typical doors. Get a nice close view of the truck here. And you're going to notice these trucks are a little bit different than they are on the older model. I'll show you that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to focus in on the, probably a little too close on the text there, but nice clear printing on everything, good clear color. No real line bleed or anything, which is nice. Separately applied grabs. And I'll bring you around here to the front pilot detail. Once again, you don't have, it's kind of hard to see, it's in shadow, but you don't have separately applied MU hoses, but you do have operating ditch lights. And you've got your antenna arrays, exhaust, and your horns. Okay, let's jump over real quick here just to the older gen. Still got all the labeling. Don't mind the static grass that's stuck to it. But take a look at that truck detail right there. Notice anything? Maybe that big brass contact? So the older generation used the typical Atlas brass contacts, where those get your power to the motor. Where the new model actually has it hardwired. You can look in there and you can see the wiring. Same kind of detail set up on the pilot. It almost looks like the exact same pilot. So not a whole lot changed in the tooling. I will tell you that the handrail on the old one is not nearly as fine. So I don't know if you're going to be able to see that quite in the video, but there's a much thinner profile railing on the new one. A lot of the other details pretty much the same. They haven't changed much. Still had the etched metal, still had the panel liners. It's almost like they just resurrected this baby right out of the old mold. Cleaned up some of the details and said, there you go. So from my standpoint, it worked great. back then, and in its new release, this is a chance to grab one for yourself. So if you were looking for one of these, they are available for sale now. I believe they've got 2 road numbers in the paint scheme. So let's take it out on the track and let's see how she runs. Okay, so before we get these things running around the layout, one thing that I do want to mention to you is obviously I'm running 2 different generations of the model here, and the older one is not equipped with sound. It's got a Digitrax drop-in. It is old school as far as DCC goes. That being said, I think if any of you have tried to speed match a new ESU Loc Sound decoder to anything other than a ESU Loc Sound decoder, you know that there is a little bit of an issue, and that is the ESU decoder is sort of slave to the sound file. So what I mean by that is the sound file is going to control some of the movement. So like in startup, what happens is you hear the startup, you go through that sequence. No matter what you do to the throttle, that locomotive is not going to move until it goes through its startup sequence. And then it releases the air brakes, the compressors run, etc., etc., and then the locomotive moves. You can turn that feature off if you want to, and it's probably the easiest way to speed match. But then you lose that functionality, which is something really cool that ESU adds. And so I don't know why you'd want to turn it off unless it's aggravating to you, but it adds a level of realism. It's pretty cool to your locomotive. So I have tried many ways to get the old Digitrax decoders to respond that way, and they won't do it. They don't have that functionality. So these 2 I was actually able to get pretty close, and I just messed with variables 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and as long as I respect the locomotive startup, so I let the locomotive start up and I don't try to move it before the startup is complete, they run together pretty well. And so I know you're going to ask me now, what is the sequence? So your startup sequence, which is your number 2, is your first curve, line on the speed curve. I set to number 1, and then 6, which is your midpoint, is 88, and then 5, which is your max, is 210. So your speed curve is 1, 88, and 210. And then go into your 3 and 4. Now 3 controls your acceleration, or how fast your locomotive will respond to a throttle increase, and 4 is your deceleration, how fast your locomotive will respond to a decrease in throttle. So I set 3 to 20 and 4 to 10. And when I do that, the Digitrax still wants to go a little bit faster in the start than the ESU decoder, but it evens out once it starts moving. So there's an initial little bit of a push, but it's not enough to really get the locomotive to shove the other one. And then, like I said, once they get out and they're running on the open road, they don't fight each other. But if you go any higher with the delay, then all of your commands are delayed, and the Digitrax just lags way behind the ESU. So that was kind of the sweet spot for me. So in order, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, it would be 1, 20, 10, 210, and 88. I'll put those CV values up there for you to look at so you don't have to try to memorize them. But anyway, that's how, in case you were wondering, that's how I got these 2 to run together. Okay, here is our new locomotive. This is our stress test. There are 6 cars. That is what I'm usually pulling behind this thing. 6 cars all by itself. Here's the other guy right here, so you know I'm not cheating. So 6 cars all by itself. This is a 2% grade. I know that because it is the Woodland Scenics risers, and we're about halfway up the grade at 20% throttle, and that's as far as she's gonna go. So let's see. I'm gonna take 1 car off. At 5 cars, at 5 cars apparently she can keep going a little bit more. Yep, nope. Let's go 4 cars. Oh, wait, knocked one off the track here. That's not fair. Let's put that one back on the track. Okay, so at 4 cars, looks like she can make the grade. That's pretty standard, actually, for what I'm seeing with sound locomotives. So let's bring her back. Now, my grades are exceptionally steep, so if you have less grade, this may not be an issue for you. But the grades on this line, just there's a lot of rise, not a lot of run, just the way it's built. So, all right, let's take the old locomotive here. We're going to swap these guys out, so we'll just pull him off, and we're going to put the non-sound guy in. Now, for those of you watching at home that may have had some experience with this, I think you know how it's going to end, but for those who, might be new to it, let's not ruin it. So there's 4 cars. Okay, we don't have any issue with 4 cars on the old one, so let's go right on ahead and slap on 5 cars. Let's bring it back down grade here. Let's see if we can go up with 5 cars. All right, so we're going to do 5 cars. I'll keep my throttle about the same, make it all fair. Alright, yeah, she's going to make it with 5 cars. Alright, so let's go ahead and put the 6 car on there. And let's go ahead and bring it back down grade, start from 0. Now, one thing I do want to mention, that if you are going to try to add sound to this locomotive, it's something you would have to. It's not designed to take sound, so you would have to get in there and sort of, do some frame modification, which would take weight out. So we're now at 6 cars. We are at the 20% throttle, and yep. Looks like I'm stuck at the same spot. Let's give her a little help. No, she definitely stuck. And no, she's not even moving at 5. Oh, there she goes. So, power-wise, pull-wise, I'm getting about the same out of both of these 2 locomotives. I wanted to do that because lately we've been having some chatter on the channel about not getting good operation because you're suffering from sound. These 2 locomotives are a prime example of you're getting about the same. So I'm not getting any more or less cars out of my locomotives by going with the sound, and I'm getting the sound. So if that's something you've been concerned about, there was one test. I'm sure if you go with other manufacturers, it might be different. At least as far as the two Atlas units are concerned, I got similar pull results. So I mean, I don't run trains unless they're locals without two locomotives anyway. Just I like to run more than one. So for me, a 6-car train, which is standard, it's probably always going to have two locomotives on the front. So these two paired together is pretty much going to be the standard or some variation thereof. And together they handle the grade fine, so I'm not going to worry about it. But in case you were wondering, that's where she passes on the stress test. It's about 4 or 5 cars, depending on the running start there. Okay, so in conclusion, if you were thinking about adding the Dash 8 to your locomotive roster, I do recommend it. It is every bit of nice as the old model, if you were fortunate enough to grab one of the old models. It's got one thing, I don't know if you noticed this or not, where that blue stripe looks like it's different thickness. It is a lot more even over here, and I saw that in the video, and I looked at it to see if it was like misplaced, and nope, the line's actually painted crooked on the model. So I can tell you that the new model does have a better paint job from that from that standpoint. But this looks to be like they rehashed a lot of the good details from an older model. So I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But the addition of the ESU Loc sound is a nice touch. And if you wanted to add the separately applied MU hoses, the BLMA edition, the wire metal hoses that they make there, wouldn't be bad to throw right on there and kind of round this model out. But everything else is a pretty nice little model. It's retailing right now for I believe just over about $180. So as far as sound locos go, it's not terribly priced, especially when you start looking at scale trains and Broadway Limited that'll go north of $200. This one is nicely priced. So if you got to add a few extra little details to make it your own, that's not all that terrible. I will tell you that the old model does not have working ditch lights, so that is an upgrade to this. You get the operating ditch lights with the functionality of the sound to alternate. So it's a good model, and if you're thinking about picking up one, I do recommend it, especially if you're a fan of the Pepsi can paint scheme. I would get them before they are gone yet again.